must say your hair does look very nicely coiffed in this moment.
I agree, and it's weird because I just worked out. I haven't showered, so it must be. I think just when when you get a haircut and it goes shorter, it can only go so bad, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'll be honest with you. I think I'm starting to get some beard grays, and I'm kind of looking forward to it.
it's people always like the gray when they're liking it. I'm still in the zone where people are liking it, where it's like, oh, it's an interesting mix, but it only goes one direction is the issue. So it's like, yeah, the mix is fine, but the congratulations, welcome to the world of grays, and I feel like our subject matter may have helped push you towards that a little bit.
It is possible, yeah. I mean, in 2016, my hair was as black as it could be, and with each subsequent Cubs season, just a little. I feel I'm just pushing through those little John Grays.
Little John Grays that we can't afford. Hey, everybody, welcome to Away Games, a Chicago Cubs podcast. I'm Kevin McCaffrey. That's Adam Mamawala, and it took me a minute to dust off the podcast equipment here. It's been a few weeks for us.
I'm Away Games. This is we're just doing it backwards. Hello, everybody. I think we've tried to be a little easier on ourselves and also on your ears, because we realize that in the off season there just aren't things to talk about every week. I hope no one's offended that we haven't been here every week, but I think it's okay.
You didn't do anything. You listening didn't do anything wrong.
Not at all.
This is not your fault for sure. We've narrowed it down. It's definitely not yours. You can follow us at Away Games Pod, where we have tweeted occasionally when things have come up, and I guess we've just waited until there was, enough built up to sort of fill a half hour of Cubs talk with.
Well, where should we start? Should we start with the Cubs' newest acquisition?
Sure. Do you want to tell me who that is?
It is Michael Fulmer. Fulmer, who is a name that I feel like was sexier in the past, but is still intriguing to me. How do you feel about how he fits into the mix here?
As we're coming off Valentine's Day, I think moving from sexy to intriguing is a natural progression for relationships that last a while. And
I think that's what you've been doing with these grays coming in, from sexy to intriguing.
Look, they're going to intrigue you, if nothing else. What is happening to your face? People ask. It is an intriguing name, but you're right in that several years ago, this was a guy who had crazy high trade value. Really, this is a guy who was looked at as a front of the rotation starter. He was a hot prospect when he came over from the Mets to the Tigers, and I believe the Yoenis Cespedes trade. And he was a very good starter for a couple of years early on in his career. 3.1 WAR in 2016, 3.6 in 2017. I mean, that's a number 2 starter probably on a good team, and it didn't quite hold up that way. But he's been a full reliever for the last 2 seasons, basically 2021, 2022. We're looking at an ERA of 3.78 last year, 3.81 the year before that. And he signed for 1 year, $4 million. This is just a guy who should be a good reliever. He's 30 years old.
Yeah, I mean, do you think there's any chance that he ends up being the Cubs closer or starts that way? I mean, it seems like a little murky in terms of who they would have in that role. Like before the Fulmer signing, who did you feel like was the consensus closer, if there was one?
Yeah, I don't think there was consensus closer. I think they've almost spoken about how there isn't, but of course it would be weird if you didn't see someone getting the most chances, right? Even if it's sort of a platoon closer situation, depending on what you're facing. I think you could see it's weird since he was a position player converted and just came up last year. But Brandon Hughes is a guy who was getting some of those late game opportunities. Brad Boxberger is the other veteran signing who came in, who's had experience closing before. But I think absolutely you could see Fulmer closing some games. It's probably on the short list along with Boxberger, Brad Wick, and maybe if you're going lefty, Hughes. Or there's been some rumors that the Cubs would use some of their remaining space under the competitive balance tax for a left-handed reliever.
How do you feel about closer by committee in general?
I this is a place where I generally am a traditionalist a little bit. Like I like a closer, or I like at least closer 1A and 1B. I don't think because I think the Cubs right now make all the sense in the world to go closer by committee, and I also get with how well the Cubs have done getting bullpens together. I appreciate not spending a ton of money on that spot, but if you're a playoff team, which I don't believe the Cubs are, if you're a playoff team, I like having a guy who's used to that human element of the highest levels of pressure coming in at the end and having someone you can just really trust. Like, this is the guy who knows he's got to get those 3 outs.
Right.
How about you?
I think that I'm more with you in terms of I like when people's roles are defined. I think it helps people generally be the best version of themselves if they're
Mm-hmm.
not always feeling like their job is on the line.
Mm-hmm.
Because to your point, like closer by committee, you still end up leaning on certain people more than others. My opinion is I am a proponent of having a person who is your designated closer. However, I am a fan of and I think Madden did this at times, but the kind of more modern philosophy that's like, my closer is the person I'm using in the highest leverage moment.
Oh, yeah,
Like,
totally.
I would prefer it to be the ninth inning to close out a game, but if we're up by one and it's the bottom of the seventh and the other team has a bases loaded with nobody out, unless now we're getting into the whole like, do we start with a clean inning? Do we not? But the point
Sure.
is, let's just say let's make it cleaner, right? If it's the bottom of the seventh, they've got 2, 3, 4 coming up. If that is the moment where you're like, if we don't get through this, we're not going to get to a closer anyway. I've always been a fan of in
Yeah,
recent years.
totally. I think you have higher leverage guys and lower leverage guys. If you're sort of
Right.
going to split higher leverage guys, lower leverage guys, then there's guys who can go multiple innings. There's guys who are more one inning guys. I think a good mix of that is what you're looking for. And I mean, talking about back in the day, I think this was the like sort of fireman, the bring in your best reliever when it's the highest leverage thing. I mean, that is a strategy that dates back decades and decades and stuff. That's sort of how closers began, but they would be throwing 3 innings to close a lot of the time in like the 70s and stuff. But I think Andrew Miller sort of repopularized that, like your best reliever coming in for that Cleveland team that the Cubs beat. And I do very much like that. Like in an ideal bullpen, I love a 1 inning closer, and I love a guy who can come in and just sort of blow away hitters whenever you need it in the middle.
Right. But my big takeaway from the Fulmer signing is that he is now added to the list, I would say headlined by Cody Bellinger, of people that the Cubs have signed who have something to prove. And I think that could be a good thing, I hope.
Yeah, I think it could be a good thing. I think it also sets up this team to do a flip at the deadline again because I
Yeah.
don't think they're going to be a clear threat. I mean, it's hard not to compete for the wild card at this point, for the
Right.
last of the wild card spots. They'll be in the mix for that, I think. But yeah, I mean, it sets up. You could be flipping guys having good years this year. You could see Fulmer, who they just signed, obviously Boxberger, of course, Marcus Stroman, and Cody Bellinger could be guys you're thinking about flipping at the deadline. And I know pitchers and catchers just reported we don't want to be talking about flipping, but you can see either these are guys where that, as you say, that prove it year really go at it, have a great year, and the Cubs surprise, or it's some flippables.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're just we're extra triggered by the Bulls doing nothing at the trade deadline.
Man, that was a choice for sure. The Bulls doing absolutely nothing at the deadline when they weren't doing well. It would be sort of like, I guess, what the 2021 Cubs just trading nobody.
Right.
And I know extensions work differently in the NBA, where there's more like windows when you can extend and stuff like that, which you can hear that. You can hear more NBA talk at Adam's other podcast, Horse Hoops, is where that is. Adam, I'm sure, is more up on that than I am, but yeah. So it's, I mean, it looks like Fulmer's a good signing. It's a good signing that a good team would make, So I think that's something to be relatively happy about.
Yeah. The big Cubs news really is Fulmer has been signed. It seems like there's still a chance for us to sign a lefty reliever at some point. I would have to look at who's available. I believe Chafin is still available. If
Chafin just signed with Arizona, I believe.
Damn
I
it,
think so.
damn it.
Unfortunately, those vibes have gone.
He does have a sheriff ass mustache. So
Yes, yes, he does. And he was in Arizona before. He's going to go kill some rattlesnakes. So he's off the board. Unfortunately, I think Zach Britton is still out there, who sort of hasn't been good in a while, but obviously has been very good. So we'll see. But it seems like probably one more veteran lefty is coming.
Does that mean Buck Showalter's going to wait to sign him until after the season?
He's going to sign him for game 163. Yes, exactly. Feel like, we were hoping for the one game playoff. It never happened. So
But
yeah,
yeah, the
that
only other Cubs news I have just from Cubs Twitter is your boy Seiya looking pretty beefy in a good way.
Saya beefed up. Saya got the there's sort of two categories as we approach spring training, right? There's the best shape of his life guy, and then there's a cousin of that idea. This guy just got big, and
Hmm.
Saya looks, I mean, he looks like he's put on, I don't know, 15, 20 pounds, like
Yeah.
from what you're seeing, and like muscle, it seems like.
Yeah, I don't know what that's going to do for his game. I don't think he's ever looked like that in his career before, but I guess he's trying to hit some dongs, and you can't fault him for that.
You can't, and like the power didn't seem like it was missing really last year, but also
No.
maybe it's a thing where he did struggle with injury a little bit. Maybe it's also just like building up early in the year. Players tend to lose weight as the year goes on just from playing and playing every day, and and you just, you're burning calories and stuff. So it's interesting to see that happening, and he's yeah, he looks good. Drop the workout plan, Saya. Like drop. How do I mean? Because it's a pretty quick beef up. I mean, it's what, 4 months since we've seen him last.
Yeah, it's not long.
No, P90XXX, baby. He is, and Seiya, this is another thing that's going on, is the World Baseball Classic is coming up. And
Mm.
Seiya is going to be playing in that. He's going to be playing for Japan. He's going to be playing for Japan in the upcoming World Baseball Classic. And there's going to be a bunch of Cubs on rosters. So I'll tell you a little bit about that. And then we're going to talk about the rule changes that are coming up that were just made official, right?
Yes, sir.
So, all right. So, on Puerto Rico, we have two current Cubs. We have Marcus Stroman, who fashioned himself as Captain America in the last World Baseball Classic, and now he's switched. He's switched to Puerto Rico. So Stroman's over there with Nelson Velazquez is also joining him. And also, we have two former Cubs on Puerto Rico. Obviously, Javi is one of the faces of that team. Also, do you remember our old friend Dwayne Underwood? Did not know
Of
he had.
course.
I did not know he had Puerto Rico eligibility, but he's going to be over there.
I did not know that either. I mean, one of the most famous Javi tags is from a World Baseball Classic. The I think Yachty throwing to him and he's pointing at him before the ball's even like at the pitcher's mound.
The no look. One of the most
Yeah.
fun teams we've seen was that year's team Puerto Rico,
Right.
and they should be amazing again. It's San Ziotti. It's most of the same people. Canada's got Cubs prospect Owen Casey, who came over in the Yu Darvish trade. Big power. He's by most measures one of the Cubs' top 10 prospects, and by some even higher than that. Jared Young, who's been a good hitter in the Cubs system for years. He's with Team Canada as well. And Curtis Taylor, who I'll tell you, I don't know. But he is officially a Cub, and he's officially Team Canada for this.
All right.
Mexico's got Javier Assad. He's going to be playing over there. Israel, you got your mensch, Matt Mervis. And
Ooh.
Great Britain, how are they here? Question one. For some reason, Great Britain strikes me as the weirdest team that I've seen in WBC. But they've got BJ Murray, who's, speaking of jacked dudes, he's a buff infield prospect, had a really good, surprising year last year. He's going to be playing for Great Britain. Brandon Noriega's over there as well. We've got Cuba Ronis Elias, who dominated in the Winter League, was like one of the best pitchers in any Winter League, and the Cubs picked him up. So that's an interesting guy. Then Italy has Italy, I will say. So some of these guys were like stretching the eligibility for, right? It's like, oh, I had a friend who went to London once. I'm eligible for Great Britain, basically. But this Italy, I don't care. I don't care what the actual connections are. The names connect them enough. We got three Cubs: Vinny Natoli, who I don't know who that is, but it's Italian, Ben DeLuzio, and Miles Mastrobuoni. So I believe those men are Italian, and they're going to be managed by Mike Piazza. And then we've got Australia's got Liam Spence, Japan's got Seiya Suzuki, and that's all your Cubs in the World Baseball Classic.
Interesting, interesting. Now, do you historically care about the World Baseball Classic? Are you big into watching those games?
I do. Because I mean the basic and the World Baseball Classic. Let's also tell you, begins Tuesday, March 7th. It ends Tuesday, March 21st. So that's going to be 2 weeks of baseball, basically. I do like it because otherwise, it's just spring training, which I've been to spring training twice in Arizona to see the Cubs play, and I've had a great time. I really like doing it. I would love to do it again. But the games don't matter, especially if you're where the Cubs are right now, kind of.
Hmm.
It's not like, there's a couple of prospects in there, but they're not like really on the doorstep. So to me, the World Baseball Classic is a good time to have like exciting baseball that people care about, like the players care about.
Right.
And to sort of shrink it. The season's too long as it is. So this is like, for me, I think it's kind of a fun couple week intense exhibition. But I mean, they so many of these guys, they don't treat it like an exhibition. What's your
Right.
feeling on it?
I don't know that I've ever watched as much of it as I would have liked. But yeah, I think I feel the same way, which is that in this weird interim where we're waiting for, it's like it feels like baseball's here, but the baseball that exists is not really. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's like a nice way to whet your appetite for what hopefully will be a competitive and fun season. So I'll certainly watch like as it gets down to the end. I don't know that I'll be like carving out time to watch the early games, but
Hmm.
yeah, any situation in which there are baseball games that matter is interesting to me.
Yeah. And it's, I think I wasn't so into it the first couple times, but last time when it was, Stroman was really one of the big names on Team USA in terms of how
Right.
he performed. He pitched great in the championship game. Adam Jones the now retired
Yeah. Oh
Adam
my gosh,
Jones.
the catch, right?
Yeah, he had like an amazing tournament, and Team Puerto Rico was so fun too. So it should be cool, and I'm hopeful that for some of these guys, it might be a bit of like a launching point. Like for Seiya,
Right.
hopefully Seiya and Japan have a good run here, and hopefully that gets them in midseason form early, a little bit in a way that
Right.
spring training just isn't going to get you to that intensity level. So
And where are the games being played?
that's a good question. Where are the world? Let's see. Uh, where is the World Baseball Classic?
Because last time I remember them being at Petco and I think Dodger Stadium.
They were so 2023 World.
Someone's evading the law in Astoria. It sounds like.
Yeah, there's a bit. It looks like Japan.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've got games in Japan, games in Taiwan, also games in Scottsdale. So they're happening. They're happening kind of all over the place. And there's going to be games in Miami. So it looks like it's mostly in Asia and the United States, and then they'll eventually come together. I think.
Cool.
At the end. So that's what we got for WBC. And then I guess we can talk about the new rule changes, right?
Yeah, let's talk about it. So there are a number of things that are instituted this year. Some that we've talked about before, but either way, not in the detail that they deserve. So let's start with the shift because I feel like that's kind of the big thing that people are talking about.
Mm-hmm.
The new rule is such that at the time a pitch is thrown, all four infielders are required to be on the infield dirt or infield grass, with two on each side of second base. Players will be able to move as soon as the ball leaves the pitcher's hand. Originally, infielders who began the game on one side of the field would not be allowed to switch to the other side for the entirety of the game, but apparently that was revised to just each inning, unless there's mid-inning substitution. Are you with me?
I am with you, and to me this is weird because I think guys should be able to switch positions anytime. I think this is to me that's a little too restrictive, but if
Right.
as long as you're doing the shift thing where there has to be two on each side of second, and they start on the dirt. To me, that's enough. I don't care if the shortstop and second baseman are flip flop, and that's fine to me. Or the third
Yeah.
baseman, and to me that leaves a little bit more strategy to it. Where based on the batted ball data, you can be like, all right, our third baseman has more range than the second. We're going to shift him to where
Right.
like I think that's more fun, but that's not how we're doing it at least.
Yeah.
To
So
begin
now
with.
here's the interesting thing. It almost is a little reminiscent of the three batter rule, like for when a pitcher comes in, because it says a player who starts an inning at first or second base, this is an example, would have to remain on that side of the field for the whole inning, but can switch to short or third base in the next inning. But this is the interesting part. If there's an injury mid inning, then the infield can be reset. Now, I don't think that that's going to be something that people are going to exploit, but it
Mhm.
is a thing where like in the way that you just want to get someone out of the game. You say like, "Oh, is your hammy tightening up? Let's get you out of
Yeah.
there."
Right. You could have
I
some
do
phantom injury stuff.
wonder,
Yeah.
right? I wonder if that's going to be manipulated at all. I mean, I'm sure it will because everything is.
Right. Yeah, I was also reading a little bit about how the Cubs have discussed how to like sort of play to the edges of still being able to shift as much as
Right.
they can and stuff. Because I think once the pitch is thrown, you can leave the dirt. So you can like run backwards if you want. But
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, to me, that's probably putting you off balance in a logistical way. The pitch gets
Right.
there very quick, you may have heard. So
Yeah.
but yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, and also that'll be like judgment call stuff. I mean, it's like when I play softball. There's a rule that you can't leave the base. There's no leading, so like you have to wait until the pitch is thrown before you take off. And then in other
Yeah.
leagues, it's like until the ball is hit, you can't take off. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know who's going to be enforcing it when it's that minute. Now, of the Cubs' offensive players, who do you
Mhm.
think stands to benefit the most from the new shift bans?
Oh, Anthony Rizzo. Sorry, my bad. So of the Cubs that are Cubs, I guess. I mean, it's a good question. So many of the I mean, you think of Nico Horner as an all-field hitter, right? Dansby
Hmm.
is a big fly. He tries to be a big fly ball hitter. Patrick Wisdom is strikeouts and fly balls. So these are guys who it doesn't really affect for the most part.
Right.
I mean, I guess you would say like Nick Madrigal or Zach McKinstry or something.
Hmm.
Guys whose game more relies on getting the ball through the infield on the ground. Sometimes,
Right.
So if Madrigal ends up playing at all, I think that's probably good for him, although it's not like he was being shifted on much anyway. So it's
Right.
hard to say. I think, probably in general, it's left-handed power hitters, right? So Cody Bellinger, maybe. Matt Mervis, if he ever gets to play. Eric Hosmer is a lefty who
Hmm.
pulls the ball on the ground all the time. What if
Right.
Jason Hayward just hits like
Jason Hayward's going to hit
330?
400 for the Dodgers.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it's a good question, but it's one of those where it's like it's hard to predict if it'll have, you know,
Right.
how much
Yeah, I believe the main shift for Nick Madrigal was the little league. Bring it in.
Yeah, exactly. Just yelling at all the outfielders, but the demeaning, don't
Oh,
worry about it. Come on in, everybody. I want to see Madrigal show up like Seiya Suzuki. Then that's a physical transformation
oh
I'd be
yeah.
interested in. Let's do that.
Nothing makes me happier in so one of the softball leagues I play in is a co-ed league, and like so many of the guys that play are just these like old school like meathead sort of people that like any I don't care if the woman standing in is like Jenny Finch or a professional, like they will come right to the edge of where they're allowed to be standing.
Yeah.
Nothing makes me happier than a woman just ripping a ball over a dude's head and making them look stupid.
Oh, it's very fun. That reminds me of it's it's a little showbiz story of Conan O'Brien used to play in a league with in a softball league that also had Michael Bolton in it, and Michael Bolton was really serious about his softball apparently, and he was mad at a joke Conan told about Michael Bolton, and he wrote him and said, "Next time we're playing, I'm going to hit the softball through your fucking head at third base." So Michael Bolton is a guy who wanted to see Conan do the bring it in on him so he could murder him with a softball.
Wow, I
Yeah.
didn't know Michael Bolton had it in him.
Yeah, he's got that heat. He's got that dog in him for sure.
Oh my gosh.
Uh so yeah, and then we've got the big bases, the big pizza box bases is a rule change.
Yes, so we got bigger bases. Basically, the gist of it is that the size of the bases will be increased from 15 inches to 18 inches. So,
Mm-hmm.
apparently the bases were already calling themselves 18 inches on Tinder, but it's now it'll be official, which is important. The basically they're trying the reason is that they're trying to increase. It's meant to increase stolen base attempts and reduce injuries, which
Mm-hmm.
is fine. This is one of those things where it's like people will be upset about it, and there's no reason to because it doesn't. In my view, it doesn't impact anything.
Mm-hmm.
Do you care?
No, I think it'll look weird for a minute and then I won't I won't care ever again.
Right.
Basically, like I like it when guys don't break their ankles trying to make the game more exciting.
Totally.
So
Totally.
I'm into that. I unfortunately this I mean so the Cubs two catchers they have Young Gomes and Tucker Barnhart. Their pop times are just about average, just on the better side of average, 1.99 and 1.97 as far as pop time to second base. And Wilson Contreras, the dearly departed, dearly for me still, even though people are losing their fucking minds about him saying anything good about where he is playing now. How dare
Right.
he? But his pop time's a 1.9. So I just want to give a shout out to the Cubs for getting rid of one of the elite throwing running game controlling catchers in the league as soon as running was about to tick up, because that is what the rules are doing now, because it's the bigger
Right.
bases, and it's the pickoff limitations.
Right. Well, let's talk about that. So
Mhm.
the new rules pickoffs are that uh, anytime the pitcher makes a pickoff attempt, fakes a pickoff, or simply steps off the rubber for any reason, as well as when the defense requests time, it's like you're only allowed two disengagements is the word they're using per plate
Mhm.
appearance without penalty. So any of those things counts as a quote disengagement, and this resets if a runner or runners advance a base within the same plate appearance. So after a third step off, the pitcher will be charged with a balk unless at least one offensive player advances a base or an out is made on the ensuing play after the step off. Now, this is going to be hard to enforce.
Yes.
It's the first time I'm ever saying this. I genuinely feel bad for umpires having to do this because it's gonna be like any rule change. There's gonna be people screaming at them a lot for the first couple of months. But I think for all these things, they're just gonna kind of get integrated, and it's gonna be okay. I do like this from the standpoint of like it is super annoying, especially during the playoffs when somebody just throws over, not even trying to pick off, they just throw
Hmm.
over
Yeah.
like seven times in a row. It completely ruins the flow of the game. In the same way that I was a proponent of them reducing mound visits, because even our dearly departed and beloved
Yes.
Wilson Contreras used to do it way the hell too much,
Totally.
and it disrupted the flow of the game. So in the interest of time, let's run through the last few here. Pitch clock. Pitchers will now have 15 seconds to throw a pitch with the bases empty and
Hmm.
20 seconds with a runner on base. Hitters will need to be in the batter's box with 8 seconds on the pitch clock. So the way it will be enforced is that if a pitcher has not started the motion to deliver a pitch before the expiration of the clock, he will be charged with a ball. If a batter delays entering the box, he will be charged with a strike. So every stadium is going to have like two clocks located behind home plate and on
More
either side.
clocks, baby. Clocks for
You know,
everybody.
Rob Manfred, he hears you. You've said you wanted more clocks. He's given you more clocks. What else
Yes.
could you ask for? So obviously, this is an attempt to reduce the time of games. We will see if it works.
Yeah, I'm in
And
favor of
then
it. Like,
yeah,
great. Sorry to the newly extended Yu Darvish, who just signed a
right.
6-year, $108 million deal to take him to at least 42 with the Padres. Great. And, but, there's Pedro Baez. I never wanted to see pitch again anyway. Like,
Oh,
there's,
Jesus.
yeah, it's,
Yeah.
you can throw a pitch. It's okay. People have been doing it in the
Yep.
minors for years now. It can happen. Everyone's going to be fine. And I'm into it.
And of all the things that were tested in the minors, this is the one that the most people have been like, yeah, it took a little while, but then it was great.
Yes.
No one will ever be angry about being able to watch a baseball game in 2.5 hours and move on with their
Hmm.
life. I think we're all like, any baseball game I've ever watched that has taken 4 hours or longer, it's just not. It's not enjoyable. Like, yes, there are some epic games in the canon of like Cubs memories and Game Seven and all of that, but like generally speaking, especially in the regular season, please, we do not need an April Red Sox Yankees game that's 4 hours and 20 minutes. It's just
No.
not necessary.
No,
Um,
I'm into it. I'm into that rule.
and the final rule change is kind of an interesting and funny one. Involves position players pitching. The new rule is that teams will be more limited in terms of when they can use a position player to pitch. The previous rule allowed them to use one when up or down by 6 or more runs, which I didn't even know that was a thing until just
Hmm.
now. But the sides are discussing a tweak in which the leading team would have to be up by as many as 10 or more, while the trailing team would have to be down by 8 or more in order to pitch a position player. So there you go.
Yeah. So it's just reducing players pitching, which to me is fine. Yeah, let's force people to use pitchers, I guess is good. And like with as long as the baseball season is, as long as the games are, it sort of makes more innings at least pretending to be competitive, so I think I'm cool with that.
Yeah, totally. But that's all I got for the rule changes.
Sounds great. That's all the rule changes, folks. And yeah, it's going to be, I mean, it's the most rule changes we've had in a long time. So I'm sure it'll be a lot of weirdness at the beginning of the season. Welcome, Michael Fulmer. We'll be back more regularly coming up. I assume we'll probably be back next week. But we've, yeah, we're pitchers and catchers are back, baby. There's going to be more stuff to talk about. Thanks for following us at Away Games Pod, Twitter, Instagram, anything to plug on the way out, Adam?
I'm going to be in Colorado in March, and I'm going to be in Las Vegas in April. Actually, I don't even know if I'm going to be doing shows in Vegas other than what I'm doing. Colorado, if you're in Colorado in March, come see
Do
me.
that.
Evan, you're going to be in Asheville, right?
I'm in Asheville this Thursday. I'm in Bristol, Tennessee, Friday, Saturday. I'm in Wilmington, North Carolina, Wednesday, February 22nd. And I'm in Richmond, Virginia, February 24th and 25th. So come see me if you're anywhere near there.
Nice.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye-bye.